I thought that turned out amazing. It looks beautiful and it's a huge pain in the butt. I think I'm gonna throw the whole rack away and leave it to the professionals. This is something no one's ever seen before. Ooh, that's sweet. Well guys, the wait is over. The new racks are in. We've got them all dialed and tested back here in Pittsburgh. I'm really excited to tell you all about what I think about these racks, how much they cost. Stay tuned to the end if you want to see that. But before we get into that, we should probably go check out where they actually came from, which is somewhere in Texas.
No, I bet you.
I'm gonna be this guy.
What's going on, man?
Good to meet you.
You too.
This is my son Garrison. Garrison, Steven.
Good to meet you.
Uh-oh. I think we got an
There's the
Ashley
boss.
there too. Oh yeah, she's ready.
Welcome.
How you doing? This
Good
is
to see you.
Garrison.
Nice
Looks
to
like
meet
Garrett's
you.
son, if you forget. I can't wait to see your shop.
Well,
Be prepared to be underwhelmed.
I'm super impressed by Steven and Ashley Haudes. I cannot believe that as a couple they've been able to build this business from scratch to where it is now with such incredible designs and innovations.
And this, may not look like a lot, but it's because it gets cycled constantly. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars go through this one square right here every year. So it's kind of frightening when you start thinking about the scale of that stuff. So you try not to waste any of this stuff because even though it's scrap, it ain't free.
valuable.
We had to pay for all this.
you've got it down to about, what is that, a 1/16 of an inch between parts?
That's probably 32nd there. It's
you get it out of there.
And of course, you can fit two sets of sides, but you can't fit the tops and bottoms. So then you have to do basically inverses of each other there. And if you do these, you get too many tops. So then you have to make a third file. So just to cut your stuff, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different designs. And there's at least 9 different CAD files just to cut your stuff. And we're gonna hit enter.
Poking little noodles out of it.
That's the best part?
Yeah, fortunately you got a little tray down there, so all your little drops.
You literally brought one of those things that you like off the little bubble back
Oh,
and
yeah.
forth, what are those called, Garrison?
What?
That
Oh,
little thing-
poppets?
Yeah, it's a poppet. Industrial poppet.
There you go. See, you never gotta grow up.
This is like a custom designed around what we were trying to get
Right.
for our retics as, like baby and grow up enclosures.
Well,
What
this is kind of an ultra modified version of a product we already have now. It's called the HANGAR Traverse, so you can control them all individually. You're not stuck with one long strip of heat tape and you're trying to manage heat creep over time. You can really dial all of these in. But I need to go grab the prototype one over there so we can kind of look at one individually.
Yeah, they're
really.
weird.
So this was the prototype.
I like they got our custom white background in there. Look at
Yep.
that.
Obviously, you've got your slot back there where you can run your probe. So what happens is that probe slides underneath that mat so you can modulate temperatures directly.
So the deal was, once you start stacking this up in sequence, they still have this inner area back here that they can get in and have some privacy. And of course we have hides and perches and stuff for them and
Yeah.
everything. But if they want to come out to the front and interact, they can.
Yeah, so you've got your darker spot in the back, which is going to be warmer. So if they want to be secure, they can be secure, but they're not going to be too cold. So if they want to come out and explore, they can.
You can actually see it happening naturally there.
Yep.
You can see the line between the dark, safe side and then the light side.
Yeah, so they have the choice, within their space.
So we packed up the racks, and by we, I mostly mean Ashley and Garrison, while Steven and I chatted away. We grabbed some breakfast with our new friends and crossed off eating some frog legs from Garrison's bucket list and made our way back to Pittsburgh. Now that we're here, let's go ahead and get into these racks. Let's take a look at what we got going on. So first, to go over a couple of features, there's the base rack, which is this unit, 2 tubs, kind of like you saw the prototype down there in Texas. And then we added on 2 custom options. One is the side viewing window, which consists of this covered plate, an open space in between the 2 racks, and another covered plate over here. What this allows is that it really takes advantage of upgrading from like a semi-clear type of a tub to these ultra clear ones. The animals can see perfectly what's going on outside, but they can see more than just straight out. They actually get a 180-degree view now, because if you were to look through, let's say that I was a snake in this rack. Come here, Annie. Why don't you set aside over here for a second, darling? And darling, I've been paying too much time with people in Texas. All right, so if you're able to look in through here, she can actually see what her neighbor is doing or what her neighbor's neighbor is doing in there. This has kind of unexpectedly helped us out a lot in our relationship and our training with the animals. If you think about it, you know, one of the reputations that super dwarves have is for having an explosive feeding response, which is actually something I love. They come flying out the top, they eat every time. The problem is sometimes they try to eat me first and then ask questions later, right? To get your fingers bit and all that stuff, because they can't see what's going on. They come flying out and they just see the first warm-blooded thing, which is usually my fingers, and they grab on. But with these tubs, not only can they see out to see if I'm coming to interact or see if I'm coming to feed them, but they can see down the row and say, oh, hey, look, all of us are getting fed now. They very quickly became acclimated to that, and it totally changed their demeanor. They're so much easier to just, you know, go right in the cage and deal with than they ever were before. So that's one of the main features. The second one you could see also in that prototype rack, and that's how they have kind of that cave system to the back. So if you look in this cage, you can actually see the heated area, and it's enclosed on 3 sides. So that snake is able to get away from that viewing area and into the back for an additional sense of security. Now, that area also has the heat pad, as you could also see. But what that allows them to do with the way we have these tubs set up, again, this is the front of our tub, and they're in the back where this would be the heated area of the enclosure and the kind of privacy area. We put up some little curtains, so to speak, with these fake vines that we hung from our removable perches, which drop right into those cane bros. Hi, honey, how you doing? And those curtains allow them to get in the back, and even when the cages are lit up and we're viewing from the outside, just to check on them, like, hey, this one shed, or maybe that one dropped a rodent and didn't eat it, or needs a little top off of the water. We can see all that, but they can still get in the back and have some privacy in the hot end. Now, we had to go a little bit above and beyond for the cold end. Let me grab something, I'll show you what I mean. If you're super old school or you want to go back and watch another one, you can see the bucket hack video that we did here, where we actually sliced down some buckets and made them 2 into 1, like a cup holder and a bucket hide. These cups are really important for us. It's really easy to pull these and just add fresh water all the time. We're having a low buy-in instead of like scrubbing a big rock dish or something like that. It means that our animals are more likely to just constantly have fresh water. So we found these hides. They almost perfectly cover the footprint of about half of these Cambro tubs, and they're exactly the right height to hold a 16-ounce water cup. This half the hide is way too big for the types of animals that we're keeping in here. They want a tighter hide, but with that cup blocking up about half of it, they've got this perfect area underneath that they can hide in. So additional privacy, security on the cool end. And this also acts as like a cool and humid hide with the body of cool water radiating out in this hide. So it actually increases that temperature gradient. They can get on top of the shelf, or they can climb up above that another level again onto their perch. So this actually worked out really well in combination with the Cambro tubs in the Focus Cube racks. One of the things that the Focus Cube took advantage of, you see those little runners on the bottom of a Cambro tub? These help them slide in. This was the main thing why I got rid of those red racks and tossed those suckers outside. They just didn't slide in very well. You were constantly spilling the water as tubs went in and out. And again, you had to use the lids of the Cambro tubs, which adds cost to it. And it was like that pop in and out snare to the drum sound. Well, Focus Cube has added these little runners of their own, which match up with the ones that are on the bottoms of the Cambro tubs. These are not PVC. These are a much harder material that slides like butter. Check this out. Little ASMR for you. Ooh, look at that. So smooth, so easy. No spilled water bowls. No waking up a surprise snake. It's just like butter. I love it. So the slide and the lack of the lid is huge. The Cambros, the whole reason we went with them is because they're all smooth. There's nothing for that snake to push on. And on the insides of these racks, as you can see, they're perfectly smooth as well. Zero details where they could scuff their face or something if they became unsatisfied. A lot of times if a snake spills its water bowl, can't get out of it, for example, they'll push and push and push and try to get out, and they beat themselves up in an inferior design. So if that were to happen while we were gone overnight or something, in these tubs, there's no way for them to injure themselves. I love that. But one of the other key features that those slides do is lift this up just slightly from the floor so that that heat has a way to escape. It can't build up. That heat pad is going to get exactly to the temperature that I want my snakes at and no more, because the air can come out through the front, through the back. They've also added, as you can see right here, little vents for them to escape. And there's a vent in the back of the tub right there, dead center. That heat can't build up. It keeps everything really nice. They also added a little bit of space in between here, which is really important. Let me show you why. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. This is the back sides of the tub. This is that ventilation out the center, like I showed you, for no built up heat. But this little space in between the cages, if you had some other species or you wanted to add, let's say, UVB, you could actually opt for a cut-in screen insert, and you could put your UV lighting in between those enclosures. Now again, we opted for the no push version of the tub, so that's why we have these. But there's a couple of things that this works out really well for. The first is just look at this. What a great area to run the wires. So I can run all the heat wires and cables in between the cages without a problem. And the wires, oh my goodness, the wires. So you saw the routed out bit where your probe goes under the heat pad. It's very important, you reptile keepers know, that your probe never moves. That can be disastrous. They include these amazing little zip tie plugs, so I can just pull on that and that probe isn't going anywhere no matter what. So that's one really important key feature. The other thing we opted for was dimmable LEDs. And so those dimmers are up here. I've got a whole bank of them. And I've actually also got them wired to these power strips, which I can turn off independently, or I can leave them on. And I've wired this outlet just to be lighting for these racks so that they operate on a switch with the rest of the room. This looks like a lot of wiring, and it was a lot of wiring. It starts out fairly simple. The wires you have coming out of each cage are simply the plug, the power supply for your heat mat. Your probe would go in here if this had its own heat zone. This one's tied into another. And then 2 wires for the lights. But as you compound that with 21 cages, you can see it gets a lot more complicated. One thing that would have simplified this that I wish I knew existed, there's a lot of splitters in here for these lights. Let's see, you can see one right down here. It's like a 2-into-1 splitter where I'm plugging lighting from the 2 sides of the cage into one, and then 2-into-1 and 2-into-1. They actually make these up to like, I think 8-into-1 on Amazon, really cheap for the same style LED. I wish I'd have had those. So word to the wise. But one of the genius things that Steven did with these cages was, you know, a lot of times, maybe you don't know, when you get racks and you stack them up like these racks, for example, you're actually going to have a pin in between that's drilled into the actual width of the PVC. That breaks is very easy. They stack nicely, but they're not secure long term. He actually circumvented that with these little brackets, which are pretty cool. You basically take some of the existing, they're just Phillips head screws, the 3 bottom ones on the legs of this cage, and the top 2 from the top corner of this cage. You remove those, slap that bracket in place, put those same screws right back in the hole, and now these cages are locked dead on top of each other. We did one more thing on the other side that I'll show you to kind of lock those 2 racks together. Let's go take a look over there. Okay, so we actually grabbed some kind of like nut and bolt hardware, and we put them in right here. So from one rack to the next, we're able to clamp these two together so that when you look at this thing, it's like one solid wall locked together. Now there's one more thing that we did for this room. We've got a concrete floor down here, and almost every room that you're gonna be in that you keep reptiles, it's gonna be warmer at the top than the bottom. So instead of having this rack be one temperature zone, this rack be one temperature zone, and this one, where the top part of it is a lot hotter than the cold, what we did, we have 7 high here. We have 1 zone, 2 zones, 3 zones, 4 zones like this, so they can be completely dialed in with the altitude they are in the room. On top of that, we stack these up on some insulating foam and on top of probably a super overbuilt, this is actually a pallet rack that we put that on, but that's because our floor here is not level. This is sloped really heavily and there's a drain right underneath. Makes it awesome for cleaning. We can kind of just squeegee and mop everything under the rack and it goes down that drain. But the floor was not level, and so to get all these things sitting real nice, I actually whacked down a pallet rack with a Sawzall, used that heavy beam, got it all up off the floor, and that makes it super easy to clean underneath so that we're not building up any kind of bacteria or anything. Okay, so that brings us down to the price. So this base unit that we've actually kind of come up with, you heard Steven say it, they have their HANGAR Traverse, which is a 1-tub thing. Once you start scaling, this 2-wide rack allows you to go as far and as high as you need to. So this is a HANGAR Traverse 2 that we've set up. The base model of this rack, which is 2-wide with heat, is going to be $399. As spec'd with the optional dimmable LED lights and the clear view windows on the side, this rack is going to be $523. Now, if you divvy that price up, you're actually going to be paying $260, and with the tub itself, if you get this exact model, you're looking at $290 per unit in multiples of 2. That might be about what you're willing to pay if you're going to get like a glass enclosure decked out with everything that you need, but it is not going to fit well like this. It's not going to slide like butter like that. Your snakes are going to find areas that they can push, and I'll tell you, the cost savings alone in time, whether you're someone that takes care of your own animals, your time is valuable, or if you are at a company like Reptiles where I pay other people for their time to come in and clean, just swapping from the red racks that I built myself, which worked well and were a little bit cheaper, although honestly not a whole lot. Swapping that from this, they can clean these in probably about 20% of the time and do a much better job than they were able to in the other ones. So I think they're totally worth it. I also really love supporting people like Steven and Ashley. If you guys want to learn more about how they built their business from scratch, be sure to join our Patreon. You can see whole full-length unedited conversations there about how they got from nowhere to this dynamic duo couple that they are, building all these cages out, and share some stories with them over time. But here's what I want to know from you guys. Did we make the right decision as far as customizing these? What would you guys have done differently? And if you had the opportunity to fully design around a product thing, you know, basically go to a company like Focus3, give them all the parameters that you want and have them design you a custom enclosure, what would you design? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll catch you next time.
We use whoever sells whatever from anywhere.